Hello, my name is Tanya, and I would like to welcome you to another episode of Recovery with Twicket. Today, I have a very special guest. This will be my dad. He is coming up on 20 years of sobriety as of the 17th of March, and I would just like to have him share his experience with us and bring us some hope. So take it away.
My name is Lou. I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is March 17th, 2005. I do have a sponsor, and I'm willing to sponsor others. I do have a home group. What it was like. I could give you a story of childhood all the way up until my disease, but that's not how it's laid out in the book of recovery that I use. Alcoholism says in the book, alcoholics drink because they basically like the effect produced by alcohol. What a banner idea, huh? So, and it also says that there's something that happens in alcoholics that don't happen in average drinkers, in the normal drinker. All that being said, I'm not going to get into the debate or the discussion of the hereditary of it or the science of it or whatever. All I know is when I read that, I identified with it. Everything that happened to me previous to that was irrelevant. Alcoholism was explained to me in the big book. Everything that I know about recovery and the disease of alcoholism, that's where I learned it from. And the other literature that we use in the recovery program, I will qualify, if you will, my drinking career. I can't tell you the first time that I got drunk because alcohol was always a part of my upbringing. My stepdad was a stock car racer, big barbecue guy, always had parties at the house, kegs and kegs of beer, drugs and alcohol all over the place. So I really can't tell you. And I didn't, it wasn't a profound sensation, but I know that it was look at the little kids that were drunk making a cute show. But I can tell you that my first real experience with drinking that I can remember as identified with and the book of recovery, it's a big book, is I was never a temperate drinker. I was never a teetotaler. I was always an alcoholic. I drank alcoholically. I drank with a purpose, and that was to change the way I felt. And that was, I was living in a small town of Pratt, and I was 13 years old. My brother, Angelo, who's deceased now, he had a friend that was going to come over and they were going to party. And he said that I can't because I'm babysitting, but my brother's here and he'll drink with you. So at the age of 13, Jeff came over, who's deceased also from this disease, brought over a fifth of Jack Daniels, a fifth of Mezcal tequila, and a 12th pack of Tall Boy Pabst Blue Ribbon. Halfway through the Jack Daniels, we ran out of Coke. Halfway through the Mezcal, we ran out of lemon, and we almost off the 12th pack of, well, I think I took myself sober because the parent, Marina, came home and walked through the door, and as soon as she walked through the door, Jeff got up and fell on his face. So she grabbed him by the back of the hair and threw him down the stairs. I stood up and I walked over to my apartment, which was across the hall. So that's not normal. But that's how I drank for the next 24 years. I never drank to be social. That was not, I always drank. I dated a girl and said, you're always the first one to the party and the last one to leave. Empty-handed, that brought me to March 15th, 2005. Now, all the wreckage that we talk about, I created since then. The destruction of family, the loss of respect and love of everyone around me. So March 15th, 2005, I called my mom on the phone and I said I'd had enough and I love you. I don't want to do this anymore. And I was drunk, of course, and I proceeded to head to the Skyway Bridge to end my life. Well, on the way there, I blacked out. I remember coming up to a stoplight on the beach, and my next memory was I woke up in the parking lot of a meeting, my home group. Now, we'll get into that a little later about providence and higher power and all that later, but that was providence because I did not do that. And these girls were talking downstairs about a man who had relapsed. He was in the program and he'd relapsed, and he came to pick up his car. He had relapsed and he had soiled himself in the meeting, and they were laughing about it. And me and in my drunken stupor, I was walking up to the building and I turned around and I snapped, do you find something effing funny about that? And they went running upstairs. So I go upstairs to the meeting, and I'm really, really drunk. Tucker and Cooter Brown. I was messed up. And I'm standing at this bar and I'm looking around there. The meeting's going on. I don't know what the hell they're talking about because I'm drunk. But I was holding on to this big book. I was just holding on to it. I said, I think they gave me a big book and I should just hold on to it. And I'm sitting at this bar and I realized it was a bar that I used to drink at years and years and years ago. I said, hey, this is El Gordo's. I used to snort coke off this bar. And everybody goes, yes. A whole bunch of things happened that night in that room that were Providence related. So they got me to quiet down. And then a few minutes later, two guys come upstairs and they say, well, who's driving that white truck downstairs? And I said, I am. They said, well, the police want to talk to you. And I wasn't sure why they wanted to talk to me. And it kind of scared me because I could have killed somebody and not known about it. So I go downstairs and these police officers are behind my truck and they're looking at my truck. And I said, how can I help you? And the police officer looked at me and they said, somebody ran into your truck. These gentlemen saw it, called us, and we want to know what to do here. Well, remember that gentleman I was just telling you about who had soiled himself? He relapsed. He came back to get his car. And on his way out of the parking lot, he hit my truck. And I said, well, where did he hit it? And there was this little tiny dent at the bottom belt. You couldn't even see it. And I'm like, good. He knocked the dirt off of it. Can I go back up to my meeting? So I go back up to my meeting and they said, do you want to press charges? I said, no, I don't want to press charges. He's not a criminal. He's a drunk. He has a disease. He's not a crook. So I go back upstairs to the meeting. Now, the first time that under the influence of alcohol, I talked to the police and I did not go to jail. I have a very lengthy history with the law enforcement as a result of my drinking. And the connection that I had with that gentleman that came to pick up his car was the man that ended up sponsoring me and showing me the process of recovery was also his sponsor. So that night, I picked up my white chip. I go home and I'm crying. I'm crying my eyes out in the parking lot of my apartment that I was at. And I'm grabbing hold of the steering wheel and I'm pounding on the steering wheel. That gut-wrenching cry or your stomach cramps. And I'm pounding on the steering wheel and I'm pounding on the steering wheel. And I said the drunkard's prayer. God help me. So the next day, preceding all this, I was dating this girl and it was somebody's birthday and they were having a party or whatever. And they said that they wanted to know what I was drinking. And my drink at that time was Rumplemintz. I said, get me 2 bottles of Rumplemintz and put them in the freezer. Remember, I just went to a meeting on the 15th. On the 16th was this party. So that day was a Tuesday. This was a Wednesday. And I go to their house like nothing had happened after work. I go straight for the freezer. And I grab this bottle of Rumplemintz. I grab a shot glass. I grab the bottle. And this girl looks at me and she goes, what do you think you're doing? I said, I'm drinking this Rumplemintz. After everything you went through last night, you're taking a drink. I said, well, somebody's got to drink it. There's 2 frickin' bottles. Doing my part. So I go to pour myself this drink and I actually took the shot. But as I set the shot glass down, it hit me. This is where it starts. This is where the pain starts. And that was my last drink. So that's what made my sobriety date St. Patrick's Day. It wasn't something I had planned. It wasn't, trust me, if I had anything to do with me getting sober, I'd be drunk by now. This was all Providence. So the meeting that I picked up my white chip in, I went and picked up another white chip and I made that my home group. I got a sponsor. My sponsor, when I asked him to be my sponsor, and I was like everybody else, how do I know who's going to be my sponsor? And how am I going to know my sponsor? And everybody kept telling me that, you're going to know your sponsor when you hear what comes out of their mouth. You're going to want what they have because you're going to see it. So, I heard this man talk. He's passed now. He passed, he was sober. And he had this peace in his voice, this calmness. That's all I wanted. I wanted the voices in the head to stop. I wanted the madness and the mayhem to just quit because I couldn't sleep. But during this time, I was going through delirium tremens. I was going through hallucinations. It was nasty. But this man came over every day and he brought me Tootsie Pops and orange juice. Tootsie Pops are just the small ones though. He didn't get the big ones. just got the small ones, just a little bit at a time to combat the alcohol cravings and the orange juices to replenish the natural sugars depleted from your bloodstream from alcohol. That's what causes the severe hangover symptoms. I did not know that then, but I just thought he was being a really nice guy, but he knew what the hell he was doing. He wanted to save my life. And then he said, because you need to go to the hospital, Lou, because you're going to die if you don't go to the hospital and get treated for DT. I said, I'm not doing it. I just don't care. He goes, why don't you want to go to the hospital? I said, because I want to remember this. If I live through this and I remember it, it's going to make a difference. And I made it through it. I didn't die. I went, trust me, it was not pleasant. It wasn't pleasant, and I made it through it. So it was suggested to me the night that I asked him to be my sponsor, we sat down with the big book. We went directly to how it works, and he asked me, started at step 1. He says, do you have a problem with step 1? I said, we're powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable? No. That's why I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous. He goes, do you have a problem with step 2? Can't you believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity? I said, no. Once again, that's why I'm here in Alcoholics Anonymous. You guys are staying sober. I can't do it. He said, well, what about step 3? He made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand it. I said, I don't believe in God. And without missing a beat, he said, that's okay. You can use mine because he's kept me sober for 24 years. Again, I couldn't argue with that. And I would do anything at that point to stay away from a drink. And when with that, we went to step 4 and we got out a pad and we got out a pen and he showed me in the big book how to write out my 4-step. He showed me where the instructions were and he gave me detailed instructions on what it was I was supposed to write and how I was supposed to write it. And before we left, prior to doing step 4, we got on our knees at the end of the table right there in the meeting room and we said the 3rd step prayer. And then we went on to step 4. And before I left the room that night, he gave me an instruction. He says, Lou, I want you to go home and get on your knees and thank Norm's God for keeping you sober today. And tomorrow when you get up, I want you to get on your knees and ask Norm's God to keep you sober for that day. That's how they tricked me into praying. But I was willing to do whatever it took. I did not care. If it worked, it worked. If it didn't, I could blame them. So that's what I did. And that's what I've been doing for 20 years. Because my idea of God and his idea of God, it worked for him. My idea of God never worked for me. Never worked for me. So that's how I started. And to move on with step 5, I did everything that I did for step 4, wrote everything down just the way he wanted it to me. He asked me to do it. And so I called him on the phone and I let him know. I said, I was done with step 4 and we need to do step 5. He says, we can do it Saturday. I said, no, we're not doing it Saturday. We're doing it now because I keep hearing in the rooms how these people do step 4. And they hang on to it for 2 or 3 weeks and they end up going back out. We're not doing that. If you don't have the time to do my 5th step, I'll find a priest. I don't care. But I'm not carrying this around because I've heard it too many times in my short time of being there. So he made time and we spent 5 hours doing my 5th step. Was it perfect? No, probably not. Was my 4th step perfect? No, probably not. But it was a start. It was teaching me the program. It was showing me the path. So in step 6, in step 7, he says, make no mistake about it, Lou. He goes, these seem simple, but these are the start of a lifetime process because you're still going to have character defects and you're still going to have to find a way to get them removed or work on them and make them less prevalent. But I did as instructed in the big book. I went home. He said, just say a prayer and then relax for an hour. And that's what I did. I went home and I relaxed for an hour and I ended up falling asleep. But it was the most sound sleep that I'd ever had for an hour in my life. I got up. I made my 8-step lift. I added to my 4-step, and it says it in our literature. You already have your 8-step list. It is in the 4-step. Just write down those that you don't have a resentment attached to, that you feel like you need to make an amends to. And I started my 9th step. Mind you, I'm less than 90 days sober. I'm less than 60 days sober. I believe that has something to do with my longevity. The success of my sobriety is because he didn't mess around with me. I needed a solution to my problem and he offered it to me. My first 9-step amends was to a woman that I was dating, and I told her that her truck got stolen and they brought it back wrecked, but whatever. But she knew. So I was talking to my brother on the phone about insurance companies and insurance rates and why they were so high. And I told him, he says, well, it's because little kids like us used to steal our mom's car and drive around Pinellas Park in the middle of the night, which we did at the age of, I was 4, Angelo was 6, and Danny was 8. We're stealing cars at that age, cruising around Pinellas Park. I said, no, that's not why insurance rates are so high. I said, it's because guys like me get drunk and take their girlfriend's car, and then run from the crash. He goes, you did that? I said, yeah, I sure did. And now I got to go make amends to her. And this is about lunchtime, and I'm pulling into this store to get me a sandwich. I said, well, I got to get me a sandwich this lunchtime. So I turn off the truck and I start heading towards the store. Guess who's walking through the parking lot in the store was this woman. And I stopped her in the parking lot and I let her know. She asked how I was doing. I was doing okay and blah, blah, blah. I said, listen, I got to tell you something. I said, I know I told you somebody stole your truck. I said, but that's not what happened. I said, I got drunk and crashed your car and I left the scene of an accident. And I'm willing to do whatever you want me to do to make this right with you. And she says, are you in AA? I said, yeah. Sorry. I said, yeah. She goes, stay sober. That's what you can do for me. Just stay sober. Now, all my amends didn't go that way. Some of them were, some of them I thought I was going to have to fight. Now, in the program of recovery, it talks about made amends directly to those we have harmed and became willing to make amends to those. We are others in that. Okay. We have harmed ourselves. That doesn't mean that we are doormats. We are no longer dogs that poop on the floor because we're here to take responsibility for ourselves. And this is what I was told from the old timers. If you have to defend yourself, Lou, you have to defend yourself, because one of these amends was that type of an amends. I had harmed somebody physically and I had to go to them and they said, I thought I was ready to duck. I was ready to duck. I was ready to defend myself. And it didn't happen that way. But there are those that are like that, and a lot of us have done that. So it was just really awkward. But during that whole process, it helped me learn accountability. A lot of us come in with financial amends, especially financial amends that need to be made right. So my sponsor said, we set up on how I was supposed to deal with these: child support, back taxes, whatever, school payments. Paid my way out of all of them. Made payment plans. Took some time. We didn't get this sick overnight, so we're not going to get well overnight. There's a saying that this guy used to say, Fireman Andy used to go, don't get too well by Thursday. Because what happens to a lot of us is we come in here, things get real, and then things get really good, and then things get really freaking real. As we get all this good stuff, and we break our arm, pat ourselves on the back about what a great job we've done, and look at me, and look what I've done, and look what I've done. Then pretty soon I hear people saying, oh my God, look what I've done. So don't get too well by Thursday. The program is really simple, and it's been very simple. And another, all I know is about recovery, like I said before, was what I've learned in the big book and what I have studied in the 12 and 12 and listened to the old timers. And now I'm an old timer. I'm a freaking old timer, man. That's amazing. Really. My first true spiritual experience was after I experience. The whole room lit up. Can't explain it. I'm not going to try. Never have. I've told this story many, many times. I don't know what it was. My concept of a higher power is different than everybody else's. My belief system is different than everybody else's. I believe in providence more than I do believe in miracles. But somebody told me the other day for the first time when I said it in a meeting that I'll be celebrating 20 after the meeting, and saw me come in. It was part of my sponsor tree. His sponsor was my sponsor. That he says, you're a miracle, Lou. Because everybody that I talked to just knew that you weren't going to stay sober. They just knew it, but as I can't, when it talks about the 10th step and the 11th step, and it's so important for people to understand and identify, for me, that there's first of all, there's only one promise in the big book, and it comes in Bill's story. And it says, if you practice this way of life, I promise you, you will have a new relationship with your creator. And the other miracle of it was and I had to read this in the literature. I had to read this because if I did not read this in the literature, I wouldn't be sober today, because I would think of, why am I doing all this work? What is all this for if this doesn't happen? For me, I had to see it, but it was in black and white. And the miracle of it is the problem is removed. It does not exist for us anymore. Nowhere in the big book does it tell me that the problem comes back. It tells me what to do to make sure the problem doesn't come back. It gives me explicit instructions on how to stay sober one day at a time. And when all else fails, another alcoholic, get out of self. Get out of self. There are few things in this life that I'm passionate about, and this is at the top of the list. It's if anybody is looking at this and they're reading it or they're hearing this and they're seeing this, and you have any doubt, I was an alcoholic. I am an alcoholic, and I don't suffer from alcoholism. I suffer from alcoholism. I've done every kind of drug, every which way you want to put it. I don't care. And I told that to my sponsor when we first started this journey with him. I said, listen, I have another problem out there. And I told him about it. He goes, Lou, let's keep it simple. Let's take the steps as far as they're concerned with alcohol. If that other problem arises, we will discuss it then. But for now, let's focus on the alcoholism. I said, okay. I've never had to bring up the other problems as a direct result of taking his advice and doing what I was told. Service work in Alcoholics Anonymous is extremely, extremely important for longevity. Staying connected with the fellowship and building a support group around you with like-minded people who want to get and stay clean and sober is essential for long-term recovery. We do not do this on our own. I cannot take credit for something that was so freely given to me by people that were taking the time out of their lives to show me how to live. And kicked me in the ass when I was screwing up, at the same time giving me a hug, I grew up in this program. Literally, I grew up at the age of 37 coming in with a bunch of men who didn't take any crap from me, and they didn't want to hear my crap because I had nothing they wanted. And they told me so in those words, Lou, that's great, but we don't want what you have. We've had what you got, and we got rid of it. You want what we have. That's why you're here. So have a cup of shut the fuck up and have a nice day. This is how they talked to me. They did not mince words. They did not play around, because this is a case of life and death. It's not a joke. It's not a game. It will kill you. It took my mother at the age of 36. She was 36 years old when she died, and she left 3 boys behind. I was so mad when I turned 37. I got to tell you, I was furious. I was mad because I had to face another day. I had to face another year. I'd become another year of pain, and I just knew it was Groundhog Day. The only difference between the previous day or the day, today the day I die, or it's today the day I go to prison, is today I do something really stupid. How much dumber can I get? Not my first time. I'm not a one-chip wonder. I tried getting sober in 1988. I'm sober. I had a job. I was doing good. And then I got the ethics. My God wasn't doing for me what I thought he should be doing for me. He did not restore my family. He did not provide for me a way to do that. And after 16 months of trying and trying, I said, F it. I can't tell you on what day that happened. I don't know, but I can remember one thought that I had on that day. And the one thought on that day was, I can tell you exactly what I did, is I dropped my tool pouches at work and I said, F this, I'm going to get drunk. And on my way to get drunk, I said, I'm going to drink myself to death. I just did not know that it was going to take another 15 years for that to happen. I never knew that it was going to take that long for me to get sober again. Longer than that. Yeah. It was a lot longer, for the next 24 years. Yeah. So yeah, it was a long, slow process to get that, and a whole lot of wreckage, I don't think it's relevant or necessary to describe that, because we all have been there. We've all experienced it, and there is a way out. There is hope. This idiot can do it. And you hear it all the time. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm telling you right now, it's not, but it's simple, but it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. And I hope this message, if you're listening to it and it helps you get or just stay sober for one more day, then I've done my part, you know. But keep coming back, stick with what it's, and that's all I have.
Thank you so much. I do have a few questions. A little choked up, sorry. What advice would you give your pre-recovery self?
There. So that's a rough one. I don't know how I got the connection with AA, but I believe it was through my mother. I think I remember my mother going when I was a very young boy that she would try to get clean. So I know that. So I think that was my connection. And I had a tool that I knew where to go. And I ended up, it could be a made up memory. I don't know. But if I could give is stick with it. In May 88, stay with it. Stick with it. Who cares? It's not about them. But I did. I made it about other people. I made it about my fiance at the time, and I made it about my daughter at the time. And those things weren't coming to fruition for me. And I felt more of a failure by not being able to accomplish those things. So it was like, what's the use? Why am I doing all this work if I cannot have that? Well, somebody wanted you to. 50% of that equation needed you. Stick with it. If I could give myself any looking back in hindsight, yeah, that would be it.
That's
Knowing
awesome.
knowing the relationship that I have with my daughter today, yeah, sure,
Right?
where it would be.
How did recovery impact your relationships with your family and friends?
You're trying to make me cry, aren't you? Good and bad. The good and bad. It's we change. Like I said before, we're no longer the dogs that poop on the floor, you know, and people can't talk to us and treat us the way they did when we were drinking because we don't let them. We cut those cords. They wired us. You know, they manipulated us into doing for and thinking for and acting as if the way we were because we were controllable. We were using and drinking.
Right.
Cutting those cords, boy, that just ruffles their feathers. It really does. It drives them nuts. But it also gave me the opportunity to give the message to another. And after going through a process with my sponsor about grieving the loss of my daughter, putting myself through it for like about, I don't know, it's about 6 months. He goes, because we talked about it, I said, I don't. He goes, Lou, he goes, you're going to have to grieve for either you're going to start now or start when you find out the news. Because I never knew. I never knew when I was going to get the phone call that somebody's going to tell me that I need to come identify the body. And I know this, you know, being sober as long as I've been sober, I have seen many people pass away from using again. So that was always a possibility, and I had to prepare myself for that. That was very emotional thing that I went through. But then I get the call. I get the other call. I get the call that my daughter's getting clean. She wants to see her dad. Yeah. Oh, that's priceless. Absolutely priceless. You can't put a number on that. My brother, my oldest brother, with those out, I had to cut the cords, trim the cords back. We had a conversation one day about, he asked me to help him to do something. I'll give you an example. He'd asked me to do something, help him do something. I told him I would. I come to find out that I had an obligation, a previous obligation. So I called him on the phone. I said, hey, listen, I know I helped you, but I double booked and I was unaware of it. Can we reschedule? And he comes back to me with, hey, mother, you owe me. I went, whoa. First of all, stop right there. Don't ever talk to me that way again. You put down in black and white whatever it is you think I owe you. And when I'm done paying that debt, then you and I can revisit our relationship as brothers. If you ever talk to me like that again, I will beat your, don't ever call me and talk to me like that again. But since then, you know, we set boundaries. How you set those boundaries is contingent on who you're dealing with and know the fight, know the dog you're fighting. That's the only way that would have ever gotten across to him. But since then, he's come to respect and know me and love me. I started my business 11 years ago, something I've done my whole life. So I think showing all that success and staying sober and doing all this holds a lot of water with people before they start to go down that path to test you. So
Right.
the longevity of your success is contingent on the effects of your relationship, you know, and how they look at you. So
Absolutely. How has your definition of recovery evolved over time?
I can't say I don't know about the evolving part, because this thing is better left if kept simple. Keep it simple. Really, I'm serious. That's just, but this is not the magic. The magic happens, and we get that through the program and the fellowship. We see that magic in others and we want it for ourselves. So we see it, we know it's possible, and we give it. We don't even know we're giving it. When you share your experience with people and they come up to you and they say, hey, you really, I need to thank you because you really said something, blah, 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 one day, and I was whatever. And all of a sudden, you didn't, I didn't even realize you changed somebody's life. You helped them stay sober for that day, and they're not dead, and they're still coming to recover because of what you said. That's powerful, powerful stuff. To hear that from other people is just, yeah, just keep it simple. Shoemaker, tend my own. Keep it simple. I don't know about the evolution of this thing or not. I just know that it works one-on-one, and keeping it simple, because, just us.
What skills or coping mechanisms have you developed?
I haven't been jailed for violent crimes. I'm not going to say I haven't been violent. I was protecting myself in recovery. No joke. No joke. 6 years sober. 6 years sober. I got into a physical altercation at a meeting with two other gentlemen, and they did not come out well for them. But I did not go to jail. We got arrested. One of those gentlemen of somebody of long term is not going out. That much I do know. But yeah, I haven't. Could you repeat the question?
What skills or coping mechanisms have you developed? Communication?
I I I can't. Well, it's kind of what skills have I developed. I'm more rational. Sometimes people don't think so. The ability to speak my mind whether that people think it needs to be spoken or not. Holding stuff in that I know to be wrong. I'm not afraid to speak that. I'm not afraid to speak truth. I used to be able to. I used to. We were always touting. You know, I'm not that guy. No. If I got something to say, I'm gonna say it. Yeah, I say it all the time. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. But sometimes how you say it needs to be said how it needs to be said, because people are not going to get the message.
Right.
And to recognize, I guess, when I have been wrong, and being willing to step up and say, listen, I handled that wrong, and I want you to know that I regret it. It says it all the time. It says in our literature, on how to make our amends. And the word amend means to change. Nowhere in the book does it tell us to say we're sorry. We got a closet full of them. They know we're sorry. We're sorry asses when we come in here. So, but yeah, the ability to recognize and the fortitude to make amends. I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong, but I'm also not afraid to admit when you're wrong either.
What's the most important lesson you've learned about yourself?
Still learning. Still learning. Still learning. It's a journey, not a destination. The journey's not over. Still learning. 2000 really hurt. COVID really hurt me because I was so involved in the program of recovery and the fellowship. And it got me into a bad habit of not going to meetings. I got comfortable with it. Everybody, they got online meetings. I'm not an online guy. I need face to face. I need handshakes. I need hugs. I need holding hands. I need the fellowship. I need them more than they need me. I mean, because I didn't do this thing by myself. I don't know what it's going to take to get back to that. I think a lot of trust was lost, I believe, in that whole thing. So it's kind of weird. I'm trying this year. I made the effort to go to more meetings. I call my sponsor all the time. He's got 34 years, something like that. But yeah, I shared the other day, like I said, for the first time in a meeting, that I was coming up on 20 years, and I did not realize how that was going to actually affect me and how powerful it was. It was just so overwhelming. So overwhelming. I don't want my money back. I don't want my money back. And this girl right here that's interviewing me, I love her so much. I love her very, very much. And I thank God that she's a part of my life today. The greatest gift that I have of this is standing right in front of me right now. And I love her so much. And I am so proud of her. I am so proud of her. And she kicks it in the ass. She took on this thing, and she's amazing.
Thank you.
Very, very, very much.
I love you too, Dad.
Thank you for letting me come on.
Thank you.